Of course, said Daddy Bald Eagle, Thanksgiving Day is a day when the turkey is shown a great honor. But I would like to have something to say for Thanksgiving Day, too. Thanksgiving Day is a day when people are thankful. They are thankful for their homes, thankful for their country, thankful they belong to their country and that they have so many blessings. And the eagle would like to say he is thankful, too. Yes, I would like to say how thankful I am that I am chosen as the national emblem of the United States. I would like to say that I shall never cease to be thankful that this honor has been shown to my family. It was a holiday and it was Thanksgiving Day. From the moment Melly got up she felt in a holiday spirit, she said. And everything and everyone seemed to feel the same way too. First she went in quite early in the morning to see her mother who was sitting up in bed, waiting for her little visitor. Her mother was wearing a dear little blue jacket and a blue cap and was looking so pretty. She had a nice little chat with her mother and then she went back into her own room to get dressed. Yes, everyone in the house seemed to act and feel as though the day was a holiday, as it most certainly was. And oh, such a Thanksgiving dinner as they had. First they had corn soup and then they had turkey and many vegetables and then they had apple and celery salad. Next they had 2 pies to choose from, or to take a piece from each, and they had ice cream too, and every kind of a nut and piece of fruit was in the fruit dish. In the center of the table was a little bit of a pumpkin. It was a real pumpkin, but it was very, very small. On top of the pumpkin Melly's mother had put some tiny carrots and baby potatoes and some little snowberries from the snowberry bush. They did make the table look so gay and pretty. After dinner Melly and her family played the good old game of stagecoach. You know the game? The different people in the room who are playing the game take the names of the people supposed to be in the stagecoach, such as the driver, the little boy traveler and his mother and so on. Every time the word stagecoach is mentioned each person playing the game must get up and turn around, and the last person who sits down when doing this goes on with the storytelling. Of course the one who is telling the story must tell all of the trip this imaginary stagecoach took. And of course the names of all the characters must be mentioned often, for every time a character is mentioned that one who is taking the part of the character must get up and turn around. So Melly and her family played this in the afternoon. And when it became dark they lighted the lights and the fire was poked up so that it blazed most beautifully. They had supper in front of the fire, and though each one had said he couldn't possibly eat another thing after such a dinner, they all managed to eat something. And when Melly went to bed that night she said, I believe in Thanksgiving Day, and I have so much to be so thankful for. More, I'm sure, than anybody else has. In 1620, as we all well know, said Daddy, a little band of pilgrims came to this country, brave, fearless souls who had already met with difficulties and were not afraid to face more. They had already tried to cross the Atlantic, but their ships had leaked and they had had to go back. But they would have nothing to do with such a word as failure. And this is, I think, in itself an inspiration to all of us when we feel discouraged and as though we were failing in what we were trying to do. And so at last the Mayflower left Plymouth in Devonshire, England, and anchored on the American coast on November 21st. Here they were going to have freedom, and though the trip had been a terrible one, and though there were only 100 of them all told to keep up each other's spirits, they did not lose heart. They had planned to land on the New Jersey coast, but driven as they had been by gales and storms they found themselves on the northern shore of Cape Cod, New England. Finally they chose Plymouth for their colony. Then came a terrible winter when over half of their number died, but in the spring those who had lived through the winter still would not use the word failure, and decided to stay on. And then, at last, came harvest time, and hope and great thankfulness was in the hearts of these people. So that in the autumn in 1621 they set aside a day in which they gave solemn thanksgiving to the glorious Hearer of prayers. The first national celebration of Thanksgiving was in 1789 when George Washington named Thursday, November 26th of that year, as a day to be observed in which to give thanks for the blessings of the year. It was Abraham Lincoln who recommended that the last Thursday in November should be observed as a day of thanksgiving. And ever since then it has been observed each year all over the country, and not from time to time in the different states according to whether their governors proclaimed it as such. Formerly that had been the custom. So it was Lincoln who gave us this day as a national holiday and day of thanksgiving for every year, but it was because of that little group of people so many years ago that we have so much for which to be thankful. Sometimes it is hard to think that such terrible days followed one after the other, for the country is so big and prosperous and cultivated now. But everything has to be begun, and it seems to me that our present-day joyous Thanksgivings are just what those people, so full of pluck, would have wanted us to have. For people who could be so brave and who could endure so much for what they believed was right, could not help but have hearts full of love and capable of great happiness. I've been here in the zoo for some time, said Daddy Buffalo, and of course I do not keep up very well with the news outside of the zoo. But today I heard of some news and it was very good news. I will tell all the buffaloes about it. I heard that they were protecting the buffaloes more and more all the time, now. I was told that they didn't go after buffaloes to kill them but that they brought some of them to a zoo and people learned of their ways and of their habits and became interested in them, and others they left quite free. Surely that is good news for buffaloes. The town authorities came to a poor little newsboy who owned a dog and told him they would have to take his dog unless he paid for a dog license. But the little boy hadn't enough money and he did not know what to do, when some kind people overheard the conversation. They told the men that they had plenty of money and quickly paid for the license of the little brown dog. The boy then almost cried for joy. So the little dog wagged his tail when his master told him to thank the kind people, for he saw quickly that his master once more was happy. A very rich and spoiled little girl, said Daddy, owned a gunmetal wristwatch. It kept very bad time, and she had it mended again and again. One day she went and had it fixed for the very last time, she said, and several days afterward the watch would not go for more than a half hour at a time. She took it back to the watch mender and was told that the only thing that could be done would be to have new works put in it. She said the watch wasn't worth that and she was so annoyed that she threw the watch into the first ash can she saw. Well, there passed by a very poor little girl. On top of the ash can she spied a paper with funny pictures, and she grabbed the paper out of the ash can, and then, to her amazement, she saw the little watch. She ran all the way home to show it to her daddy, for her daddy had often mended watches for people just as favors, as his real business was that of a fruit dealer. When her daddy saw it he said, "This watch has been fussed with so much that it is no wonder it refuses to go. I will see that it goes." And sure enough he did. The watch went beautifully, and the little poor girl wore her gunmetal watch with the greatest pride. Everyone had to ask her the time, of course, every few minutes so she could look at her watch, and if they didn't ask her the time often enough she would tell them of her own accord. Now, the little rich girl was given a gold watch as a present from her daddy, but it didn't give half the pleasure that the little gunmetal watch gave the little girl whose very own daddy mended the watch for her. "I can celebrate Thanksgiving time," said the pig, "for I am so thankful. I do not live in the city." And then the pig squealed this song. "Grunt, grunt," he said, "I think it a pity. If I were forced to live in the city, there would be no nice mud in which to dig, a poor place indeed for a sensible pig." "Quack, quack," said the ducks, "and what is more there'd be no place to swim, in the city we'd lose our life I'm sure, and certainly our vim." "And," said the cow, "I agree with you too. In the city I'd not have the spirit to moo. There'd be no green meadows and nothing to chew, oh, what in the world would a poor cow do?" And all the animals began singing, and talking, grunting, squealing and quack-quacking. And all of them said, in their different kinds of ways, "We'll never, never leave the farm, we'll stay here all our days. We'd hate it in the city where they say it's crowded so, we'll never add to the crowds, we say, to the city we'll never go." "That is a fine chorus, grunt, grunt," said the pig, "and a fine song of Thanksgiving." "Why, here we are again," said the first toy to the second toy as they looked at each other on a counter in the shop, for they had met before in Santa's workshop. "Oh," continued the first toy, "a child is coming to look at us. Oh, there are ever so many children coming into the shop, and there are grown-ups too, and their voices, oh, aren't their voices nice? They sound so merry and so happy and as if they loved each other and the whole world. I'm being bought, I do believe," the first toy added. "Oh, so am I," said the second toy. "I'm going to be wrapped up. We must be going to be presents from the mothers and daddies of the children as Santa will come to get most of these toys just before Christmas." "Goodbye," said the second toy, "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas," said the first toy. "Oh, see how the children are standing outside that window looking at the tree with all our friends upon it. Wouldn't you think the window would break? See their faces right against the window pane." And as Santa Claus heard the reports of the pleasure of the children over this year's toys, he smiled to himself and said, "That is all I want as a reward for my work." Jack and Evelyn and Daddy were watching the dance which was taking place in the fireplace. They saw the beautiful costumes the fire fairies wore and they saw them blaze and flame and then become quiet. "They're eating their supper now," said Daddy. "The fire fairy cooks have finished everything and now they are all enjoying the goodies." But soon the flames began to die down and only a few little flashes of light and fire were seen from time to time. "Those flashes and flames," said Daddy, "are are some of the fire fairies who are still wide awake enough to ask the fire witches questions. For the fire witches tell bedtime tales. Soon the fairies will be sound asleep. They love to be put to sleep by the fire witches. The flames died down entirely and only a little smoldering went on in the fireplace. The witches are saying good night, said Daddy. Then they too will go to bed, but the ashes that will be left, nice warm ashes, they will be the pleasant dreams that are left behind for the fire fairies. The fire had gone out. Only some ashes could be seen, but in one corner a few red coals had appeared. What are they? Asked the children. They're the king and queen of the fireplace and they've come to see that their people are all fast asleep. Then they will go to sleep, but they will first whisper a thank you to the witches who tell the marvelous stories. And just as Daddy said that, the children heard a faint, crackling noise, and then they knew that every creature of the fireplace had gone to sleep in their warm ashes of pleasant dreams. I have a fairy tale to tell you this evening, said Daddy, of a little pig who left his mother to visit the fox family. The foxes, as you know, are very careful about their table manners and also extremely proud and were quite disgusted with little piggy. Look-a-doo's table manners, for instead of saying, thank you, he just grunt when anything was passed to him. He swallowed his food without chewing it at all. He would reach across the table, and if he couldn't reach a thing he'd climb on the table, much to the horror of all the other animals. Well, in fact, he behaved so badly that all his other nice-mannered playmates simply would not have anything to do with him and just called him pig. Even Brer Bar couldn't like him because of his bad manners, and finally he just had to go out and root in the ground for something to eat. Of course when he did that he ruined his lovely little clothes, his white shoes and trousers became all muddy, and his little speckled coat got very rusty looking. Piggy Look-a-Doo realized that he was losing his good looks, for the little pink nose looked white and his eyes very dull. He was too proud to return home to his mother, so he wandered through the woods trying to find something to eat. Finally he came to an apple orchard belonging to a mountaineer. This was the end of poor Piggy Look-a-Doo, for the next day he was killed and came on the table, roasted nice and brown, with a big red apple in his mouth, and made a fine feast for the old mountaineer and his family.